guys, today I want to talk about how to properly heat your leopard gecko enclosure, and this information can be applied, that's my dog sneezing, to species that have similar care to leopard geckos such as African fattails, which I have one of, and other similar species. There are three main ways anyway, to heat a leopard gecko's enclosure, and that would be through the use of an under tank heater, a heat rock, or a heating source from above like a light bulb, a red bulb, a ceramic heat emitter, that sort of thing. I want to start with the two that I don't prefer, which would be the heating source from above as well as the heat rock. The reason that I don't prefer the heat rock is because they're known to malfunction and cause burns or not be hot enough and cause health issues that way. Another reason I don't like them is because they do not allow your gecko to hide while being warmed. So basically when you have a warm side of an enclosure, you're supposed to allow a hide over it, so your gecko can retreat to that hide and allow some time for warmth and thermoregulation without having to be exposed to like potential predators such as yourself. And it's just a nice place to have like a little relaxation for your gecko. It's essential for your gecko to have a hide over the hot side. If you have a raised platform such as a heat rock inside the enclosure, it doesn't allow you to properly put a hide over something that's like a raised platform like the rock, so it would be ineffective in terms of providing proper care for your leopard gecko. Fortunately, I don't see heat rocks that often because they're terrible, so I'm really happy I don't see them. Literally, the majority of people don't use them because they're so problematic. Most leopard geckos are given some form of under tank heater or heating from above, such as a ceramic heat emitter or like a red bulb, and that is another option that I don't prefer. Red bulbs, ceramic heat emitters, any sort of like heat lamp, mercury vapor bulb, anything that's above that's going to be casting heat down, in my opinion, is a no-no. And there are many reasons for that. Leopard geckos are naturally crepuscular, which means that they are most active during dawn and dusk, which, as you know, is when the sun is leaving the sky or just entering the sky after night. And so there's not going to be much sunlight and not going to be much warmth that's coming from the sun onto the earth. So leopard geckos naturally do not absorb the sun's heat from above. Not like a bearded dragon, for example. Bearded dragons do absorb heat from above. They have that little eye on their head that helps them thermoregulate and determine how much heat they have coming down on them. And for another example, keeping bearded dragons on under tank heaters is dangerous because they can't tell how hot it is underneath of them. They have no way of thermoregulating that. So on the flip side, leopard geckos cannot tell that heat from above. They cannot absorb that heat from above like they can from beneath with an under tank heater. Another thing I want to address with light bulbs is that leopard geckos do not appreciate the light that comes along with the light bulbs. They are, like I said, crepuscular, which means they're active during dawn and dusk, so when it's dimly lit, and so they really don't do well with bright lights on their eyes. It can cause eye damage for them, especially in albino strains. People have reached out to me saying, why isn't my gecko eating? And they'll show me an albino with its eyes just barely open, sitting beneath like this bright light, and I'm like, well, your gecko isn't eating because it can't see. It's like not comfortable. So you have to get that light out of there. And one more reason that I don't like heating from above, especially with like a bulb, is because it dries out the enclosure. I've noticed a lot of people who reach out to me and they say like, oh, my gecko has stuck shed, what do I do? They'll have no humid hide, a loose substrate, and a heating from above element, which is just like the trifecta of terrible care. Please don't do that. I actually have a more in-depth care video about how to care for leopard geckos, so if you want to watch that, go ahead. And in addition to that, I have a whole playlist where I break down specific care sections. And so I have a whole video about loose substrates and why they're bad for your leopard gecko, and also humid hides, and also supplementation. From here, you can go watch those other videos as well. But the reason that having heat above is bad is because it dries out the environment. So if there's any humidity in the environment at all, for your leopard gecko to use for its skin, you know, to absorb the moisture into its skin so it has a healthy, proper shed, the light is just drying it out. And people might think automatically, leopard geckos come from arid regions. You're correct. You don't want to spray down their enclosure. You don't want to make it like a rainforest, really moist and whatnot. But you also don't want to dry it out so much that they're not able to have sheds. They don't flake shed like a bearded dragon. They have a shed that kind of peels away in one piece, and they eat their shed. So it's really important that they have safe, whole, functioning sheds, because if they don't, then they can lose parts of their body. They can lose tail tips, they can lose toe tips. Geckos can get stuck shed eye caps. That's really terrible for them. It's just better to have a proper healthy shed. And I've noticed that people who reach out to me, you know, sometimes they'll have a humid hide and no substrate, but they'll still have that heat lamp, so they'll still have some issues with getting their gecko to shed. So I don't recommend light bulbs for those reasons. And my absolute favorite way of heating a leopard gecko's enclosure is with an under tank heater. Now, there are some concerns with under tank heaters, like you have to use a thermostat, because if not, then it could burn your gecko because they can get too hot, or sometimes a heater can malfunction, and if it's too cool, then your gecko isn't going to get the heat it needs. But if you use a thermostat and you are measuring the temperature of the heat mat with a infrared thermometer, which is this temperature gun right here, you basically just pull the trigger at the heat spot and it'll tell you what the temperature is. But if you use that and the thermostat, which I can't do show and tell with because it's plugged in with my leopard gecko, then you use those two things, your heat mat should stay at a consistent temperature and it shouldn't get too hot or too cool, and your gecko will be safe that way. Under tank heaters are the best in my opinion because, one, they offer the heat where the gecko can feel it and thermoregulate. So what you'll do is you'll take an under tank heater and you'll put it on 1/3 of the enclosure. So say this is the enclosure, 1, 2, 3 hands, okay? You'll have the under tank heater here, and you'll have no heater here, no heater here. So 2/3 of the enclosure should not have heat, underneath, above, whatever, nothing. And then that one heated spot should have a hide over it, and your gecko can go hide in it. And then when they come out of that hide, this middle section will be a little bit warmer than this section over here, and that allows them to thermoregulate. So when they walk between, they're allowed to thermoregulate, which basically means they're regulating their internal body temperature, because reptiles are cold-blooded, so they have to be able to warm themselves up and cool themselves down. So allowing them to have the 1/3 of the enclosure versus the 2/3, so hot, not hot over here, allows them to do that properly. If you have a heat bulb that's like centered above, you're basically just casting down all that heat, and there's nowhere for them to thermoregulate, and also nowhere for them to get that proper heat from underneath that they need. Another reason under tank heaters are so great is because they allow for proper digestion. The heat underneath of them helps them digest their food, which obviously you want them to digest the best because you want nothing but absolute health for your leopard gecko. And digestion is important to health, obviously, because you need to do the bowel movements. So it's definitely essential that your gecko has the best possible digestion that you can offer, and under tank heaters are what does that for them. Lastly, under tank heaters will not do what heat bulbs do. They will not dry out your gecko's environment, especially if you offer a humid hide, which I have a separate video about if you're interested. You will not experience a gecko that has a lot of like stuck shed or anything like that if you use a heat mat, because it doesn't cast light above them and dry them out. So it's really important to offer the best heating source for your leopard gecko. And I've been using under tank heaters in taking care of my reptiles since 2015. So they're definitely what I recommend to use. I was told to use them by other people, and that's how I learned, and ever since then that information hasn't changed. The people that I talk to who are breeders, along with people who are pet hobbyists, recommend the heating from below as well, and so I couldn't recommend heating from below enough. When people ask me for advice, it's like one of the #1 things I tell them is if you don't have heating from below, you definitely need to. Unfortunately, this is something that's like pretty well known now, so most people I come across will have an under tank heater. Sometimes they have an under tank heater and a light, which is just like, no, that's too much heat. If you guys have any questions or comments regarding the 3 different types of heaters that I discussed, please leave them below. Under tank heater isn't just an under tank heater. I also mean like heat tape and anything that, you know, would secure underneath of the enclosure for heat. And by heat lamp, I also mentioned heat emitters, heat bulbs, mercury vapor bulbs, anything that's like above that's meant to cast heat down. And also, one more thing, you want to offer that under tank heater all day long, 24/7, no matter if it's morning, day, or night. You want morning, day, or night. Day is morning. Okay, morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this insightful. Please leave any questions, comments, or concerns down below. I will get back to you, I promise. Please look out for the other care videos that are out there. I have like, oh my god, 4 or 5 now. They're in their own playlist on this channel, so you can go check out all of them. In addition, you can check out the links below for social media, as well as merchandise, which is new, hey, go get it, and also Patreon and all kinds of good stuff. Alright, you guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Oh, wait. Oh, and lastly, as if I was gonna forget to mention this, please subscribe, hit the bell, do all the stuff that YouTube says you have to do now just to be notified of your favorite videos. Alright guys, bye.